this webinar. After the webinar is completed, we will place it on Water University for future reference. And we are going to place everyone on mute today. We do have a chat box for anyone that has a question. So please place those in the chat box as we move along the presentation, and we will try to have those answered at the end of the webinar. All right, well, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters today, John and Mike.
Thank you, Carol. My name is John Lombardo. I am a product manager with Evoqua Water Technologies in the Proact Environmental Solutions division. I want to thank everyone on the call for their attendance today and their participation. It is greatly appreciated, and thanks again to Carol for allowing us to present today. Like I said, my name is John Lombardo. I'm going to be co-presenting today with one of my colleagues, Mike Stock. Mike?
Thanks, John. My name is Mike Stock. And as the marketing guy, I get to support many different areas of the business. So this is great to be able to do this. I've been with Evoqua for about 4 years, and I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day to spend it with us. We really appreciate it. We're going to be covering a wide range of solutions today. So as Carol said, you can ask any questions you want in the chat box. And although John brings the street cred, he's the product manager, we are subject matter experts in most things, not everything, so please feel free to ask any question you want, and whether we can get to it or not, we will get back to you at some point, because if we can't get to your question today, we keep track of who asks what question, and we will compile all these Q&As and post them on our website, evoqua.com. When we do that, we'll send an email out to everybody letting you know that the Q&As have been responded to. So thank you again for spending time with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. So just a little outline of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about capabilities, drinking water solutions for contaminant removal and disinfection, and that really should be municipal drinking water, but drinking water solutions, groundwater remediation solutions with contaminants, carbon resin, some other medias, as well as touch on carbon reactivation. And then we're going to talk about wastewater solutions, and we're going to cover some of the products and opportunities in there as far as covers for odor control, as well as odor control itself, dewatering, so sludge dewatering, and then we'll also cover a little bit about service solutions and then finance solutions. So to begin with, solutions, at least effective solutions, are really dependent on a wide range of capabilities. There are going to be needs for temporary or emergency. You know, they could be mobile or when I say permanent, but mobile as in it might have wheels or it might not have wheels. It might be something that sits on a pad or a level piece of earth or, you know, graveled or other dirt or something, depending upon the nature of the emergency and the location. And a good solution provider will be able to provide opportunities for remediation. Could be degassing, dewatering, air stripping, so a wide swath of technologies and part of their portfolio. In addition, they'll have permanent solutions, and those will be designed or tailored for each community's water based on the local water chemistry. These would be fixed equipment solutions, not portable, not mobile, though sometimes they do go from portable or mobile to permanent, but the opportunity to have both in there is always a very key benefit. We're going to talk about the benefits of local service, and that goes on for maybe media exchanges, whether it be carbon or resin or some other type of either organic or inorganic type of media. And then talking about scheduled maintenance, and that means really preventative maintenance. So, you know, a provider that has local service is going to be more effective. They'll be more responsive. And then they'll, you know, they should also have a good amount of expertise, such as maybe in-house laboratories or capabilities, and then as well as opportunities with locations to store and move carbon, resin, media, dewatering equipment, et cetera, et cetera. Carbon reactivation is yet another one, whether your facility may or may not use carbon in the long run. Activated carbon, and that should be a little bit more specific as opposed to carbon, that should be activated carbon reactivation. There's several types. We won't get into that. That's more of a carbon 101 thing. But for those of you that aren't familiar with carbon reactivation, it's basically a thermal process where the spent or used carbon is processed in a kiln, either a rotary kiln, which is a horizontal kiln, or a vertical kiln, which is a multi-hearth kiln. And it's basically heated, so some type of direct heat injection in there. And the heat drives off the volatile organics, so the matter on the carbon, so it devolatilizes them. And it basically reactivates the carbon. The volatilized matter is captured and then further burned or treated through a combination of a thermal oxidizer and a scrubber to make sure that you're not polluting the air. And then the reactivated carbon comes out the other end, is cooled, and then available for reuse. So we're going to cover solutions that span the water cycle, and we differentiate the water cycle as we talk about it in this type of environment versus the hydrological cycle, which is the rainfall and condensation. We talk about the water cycle. So from, I'll say, initial sourcing and treatment all the way through to final treatment and discharge back to the environment, whether it be back on a surface water, back to a liquid, some type of surface or subsurface discharge. So we're going to talk a little bit about, drinking water treatment. So taking raw water, whether it be surface or well water, groundwater, and then treating it, and then distribution for commercial or industrial use, and then treatment of that for industrial water and wastewater treatment, as well as municipal wastewater treatment, and then discharge. And I'm not going to go through all the processes on the slide as you see here, but there are entire suites or unit operations, if you will, that are provided as part of that. And like it says in the bottom middle of it, intake, filter, disinfect, purify, reuse. As well as providing service and aftermarket support. So you're looking for a whole solution provider that can take care of you now, but also provide OEM parts for your equipment further on down the road. So drinking water solutions. We're going to talk about contaminant removal and disinfection. So there are proven solutions. One of the big things now that people may or may not be familiar with is PFAS, which is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're a set of man-made contaminants. They don't occur naturally in the environment. They're man-made or anthropogenic, and they've been used for a whole host of things going back to the 40s when they were developed. Non-stick frying pans. They're used for food lining. Anything that's stain, oil, grease, water, heat resistant traditionally has some type of PFAS compound in there. That's a very, very popular topic now. A lot of municipalities, no matter what the size, are dealing with it. They're seeing it in their drinking water, and they're seeing it, in fact, in their wastewater too, as it leaches in from various sources. Just because you don't happen to have a military base or an industrial industrial production facility in your community doesn't necessarily mean that you're immune from PFAS. Some of the things, some of the things that we're talking about are removal of PFAS, like I said, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, 1,2,3-trichloropropane, or TCP as it's called, which was actually a contaminant in soil fumigant. So it's something that's more prevalent in agricultural communities. 1,4-dioxane, which is a solvent. It was another contaminant. It was also a pesticide. Gen X is actually part of the PFAS suite, but other things, nitrates from fertilizers and other processes, perchlorate from explosives and other things, even as I'll say as benign as fireworks, but blasting or things, if you've had if your community's had a whole bunch of ledge blown up or something along those lines, the explosives contain perchlorate, and that does eventually work its way into the groundwater. Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, which are mostly things that might be like dry cleaning solutions, perchloroethylene, dichloroethylene, things like that, as well as gasoline additives, MTBE, other things along those lines, as well as total organic carbons. which are kind of differentiated. Those are, that includes the volatile organics, but includes such things as tannins and lignins, which make their way in through decay of natural matter, leaves, other things that other organic matter on the surface, leaves, branches, twigs, flora and fauna, et cetera, winding their way in. But kind of weaving our way back to PFAS, possible sources of PFAS include tanneries, paper mills, Superfund sites, agricultural runoff that's been contained in biosolids for land-applied biosolids, soil enhancers, as well as airports, local military bases where they're used as firefighting foams or fire suppression. So if you've anything that they've been doing fire training or other things along those lines, there's been an accident or an incident where they spray that white foam on it, that's what they call AFFF, anti-film forming foam. It actually sequesters the flame, and it helps put it out. So with that stuff sprayed on the ground, it gets into the water. In particular, two proven solutions for treatment of PFAS are granular activated carbon and single pass ion exchange resin. The benefit of granular activated carbon is that it can be reactivated and beneficially reused. So it's something that's more of a sustainable option as opposed to the single pass ion exchange resin. Just a little bit more touching on PFAS since it is such a popular topic. The solutions that we have, carbon and resin, are capable of removing PFAS to non-detect levels. And just, Evoqua is one of many providers out there, but in our case, we happen to have systems operating in rural areas in Maine, Colorado, Vermont, Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. We also have systems operating in metropolitan areas. One of the things that the rural communities have been saying is that it's still cheaper to treat, and that's kind of a piece of it, it's still cheaper to treat at the source than buying water from an outside utility. And it helps keep independent. It helps keep control over your costs and your operations. That quote's attributable to a local here. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, if the accent wasn't glaringly obvious. It was from a local rural water attendant up here in New England. Mike, turn it over to you for disinfection.
Thanks. I'm trying to park my car in Harvard Yard. Thanks. Rural communities can have unique issues related to drinking water disinfection, especially if the communities are agricultural or if their drinking water is sourced from smaller lakes, slow-flowing rivers, or other surface water. Now, all surface water contains bacteria and may contain other pathogens as well as other organic matter. So while chlorination treatments may be effective as a disinfectant, the chlorine by itself will react with organics in the water and will form carcinogenic disinfection byproducts, including trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids. And additionally, rural communities often encounter high levels of iron and manganese in the source water. And those come from either natural sources or from regional mining. And they're the ones that create discoloration and that metallic taste in the water. And unfortunately, iron and manganese are not removed by just chlorine alone. Chlorine dioxide is the recommended safe and effective solution to combat the trihalomethanes and the haloacetic acids. And then that takes the iron and manganese out as well. And chlorine dioxide is effective against viruses and fungi. And it's more effective than chlorine for the inactivation of the parasites of Giardia and Cryptosporidium. And in case you're wondering, that image on the screen is of that's what Giardia looks like. So we can all try to avoid drinking that. There are other drinking water disinfection solutions that are best suited for low flow requirements or for a smaller customer base that might be serviced by a smaller plant. And those solutions include the hypochlorite generation systems, as well as self-contained modular units. Hypochlorite generation systems are an alternative to chlorine gas or concentrated bleach. The hypochlorite generation is a salt-based disinfection system with dosage levels that vary depending on your water chemistry and your treatment goals. But there's no gas and there's no tablets. And they're also an effective use for low flow plants as well as like aquatic uses, for instance, community pools. The other effective solution related to drinking water includes self-contained modular units. They're in effect a miniaturized drinking water plant. They're fully functional ultrafiltration skid mounted drinking water systems, which is hard to say, but they're really cool. They can be stacked, which means you can connect more than one at a time if you need to. You can own them or rent them, and they're perfect for temporary use or to add onto an existing plant, like if you're expanding your plant or if repairs are being made. They're pretty much plug and play. You can put them where you need them for as long as you require. So new developments, either residential or industrial, plant expansions, or for use in remote areas are some current examples for this drinking water solution. Also, an effective provider will design this equipment for convenience using remote sensors, monitoring, and some programming, so you can be on a job site someplace other than where the equipment is and check the water quality and equipment status on your device. So I know a lot of the people here on the webinar probably work in remote sites and you don't really want to drive across the county just to check on your equipment. So the way these pieces of equipment are designed makes it convenient for you. So John?
Thanks, Mike. So we're going to talk a little bit about groundwater remediation. So groundwater remediation is taking well water or subsurface water and treating it to remove contaminants. And once again, looking at it, there's multiple methods of doing this. It can be done on a temporary, so it may be a mobile emergency rental-based system. It can be used to treat emerging and other contaminants, whether it be, you know, if you're in an area maybe out west in California that may have chrome or trichloropropane, or if you have something like arsenic or nitrate in your system, as well as a whole host of other contaminants in there. You know, it could be PFAS, it could be anything, it could be from spills or leaking of gas tanks, or it could have other volatile organics in there, it could be from manufacturing or other incidents. You know, where stuff is leached into the groundwater and contaminated. Could be something that happened a distance away, and just because of the migration of the groundwater, it has seeped into your facility or to your well or your aquifer. I would talk a little bit about permanent installations, as we covered earlier. These are fixed systems that stay and are installed permanently, so they're fixed long-term solutions, usually in for 10, 20 years or longer in certain cases. And then we'll cover a little bit about dewatering, which is basically removing water from solid or creating solids by dewatering them through some type of physical separation process. So for remediation solutions, you can see on the right in the slide, the top are some pictures of some resins of different medias. In the top picture, the bottom with the black is actually activated carbon. The picture below shows some permanent vessel installations. These are some of our what are called our PV pressure vessel series. Oh, look at that! There we go. Fantastic. That's actually our PV 5000, so it holds about 5,000 pounds of carbon per vessel. They are capable of being run in parallel or in series. Once again, this is not uncommon for any provider. These just, since it's an Evoqua presentation, we have our equipment here, just to kind of give you an example. This happens to be a permanent installation, but these are actually used in mobile and emergency situations. They can be disassembled. As you can see, they have flanges and other things, so they can be disassembled, shipped, and reassembled at a site. So they're capable of treating for PFAS, for arsenic, for trichloropropane, not particularly in this case for dioxane. They're not very effective. Carbon or resin is not very effective at complete removal of dioxane. Usually some type of what they call AOP, advanced oxidation process, is used. However, these types of vessels can be used for VOC and TOC removal, and they can also be filled with other medias for heavy metals. Can be used for removal of, I'll say, more benign metals, maybe such as iron and manganese. Once again, if you're using carbon in these vessels, they can be reactivated and reused, either brought back to the site if it's a municipal site through our NSF or someone's NSF reactivation and certification process, so you get your carbon back every time. and as well as some made up carbon, so to speak. When I say made up, virgin carbon made up for any attritional losses of the carbon to make sure you're getting back a full load of what you sent out. So for permanent installations, and if you see the picture here, this is once again a pretty permanent installation with several vessels. They're usually customized for your local water chemistry or for your application. That's very important for a number of reasons. One, you want to ensure that your treatment goals are met and that you have a true partnership with your provider. From the fact that they should really know what your water chemistry is, but more importantly, they should know what your treatment goals are, not just today, but for tomorrow and the future as well. Because there's no sense investing in a system that's only going to get you compliance for a year or two. I mean, you have to know what you're looking at longer down the road. You know, is there going to be flexibility as well as maybe expansion? Are they taken into account for those that may be in rural communities that are subject to, you know, tourism? So if you're in a ski area that the population goes up in the winter, or if you're in a warm, sunny location, that beach location that may be that the population goes up in the summer, or you know, you get fall tourism for, you know, foliage, or you know, spring tourism for waterfalls, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that when you're looking at a permanent installation, you have a very holistic view of what the solution is and needs to be. You know, you want to look at the water, you want to look at what's in it and what you're trying to remove, and really what it's going to cost you. And in sizing these, the solution should be always based on testing, some type of testing. There are typically two different kinds of testing that are done. The first is what we call rapid small scale column, RSSCT column, RSSCT testing. It's actually mini column. It's a snapshot of your water. So you would take a sample of your water, probably 25, 30 gallons of your water. You'd send it off to a laboratory. They would run what they call mini columns through it, rapid small scale columns. So they would simulate months of runtime in you know, basically a few days or actually a few weeks of time. The advantage to this is that it's pretty quick. You get results within a few weeks. And like I said, and it's usually less expensive. The other option is piloting, on-site piloting, where a provider would send a pilot unit, a small scale pilot that would run a slipstream on your water at a reduced flow rate, usually a few gallons a minute. Excuse me. And the advantage of this is that you actually would take into account seasonality. So this pilot would run for months on end at your facility. It would capture all of the seasonality in your water. It would also cover peaks and valleys in there as well as part of the seasonality. So it would take into account change of the seasons and other things. That's the advantage of it. It would also help provide a more accurate throughput and operating cost scenario for you, because it's just not a one-time snapshot. The disadvantages are that it does take time. It's a longer trial. Usually could be anywhere from 3 to 9 months. And it is a lot more costly since the time frame and the fact there's a lot more sampling that goes on. But either way, we do recommend that solution testing is done to ensure you've got a complete and robust solution that's going to be, you know, it's going to meet all of your guidelines and your expectations. Pardon the delay.
There we go. All right. Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Some rural communities are beginning to see high growth, and I don't think any community is exempt from that. And most communities everywhere are experiencing the building of new facilities over old industries. And that can mean cleaning up brownfield sites or simply treating groundwater around legacy industrial areas. And these days, that really runs into a lot of compliance issues too. So earlier we talked about mobile and emergency capabilities, and this is one example. Here, we can see a dewatering solution on a construction site that's removing metals and other contaminants from groundwater. Here, a new manufacturing facility is being constructed over an old steel mill. And this mobile unit is using bag filters, carbon vessels, and an air stripping process to treat the water. And after completing the process, the treated water is compliant for general discharge into the waste stream. In this mobile temporary process, it can last for weeks or months until it moves on to the next job. And in this specific case, the cost between renting a mobile dewatering unit or trucking away contaminated water saved the customer from having to spend well over $1 million for just a very short dewatering project. And a lot of times, if the water is considered hazardous, the costs go way up from that. So these mobile units are a really cost-effective way of doing this stuff. And on the same topic of mobile and emergency responses, of course, heavy industry can also be found in rural areas. So mobile and emergency water treatment solutions can be found in the power utility industry, oil and gas, industrial degassing, and many more. So applications can include treatment for coal ash wastewater from the closure of coal combustible residual basins, hydrostatic testing and water treatments, stormwater treatment, metals treatment, pipeline and rail car degassing. The list, just goes on from there. But these are all applications that are found, definitely, in rural areas. But a well-rounded treatment provider will have mobile solutions for these and many other applications. Now we get to touch on everyone's favorite topic, municipal and other wastewater. So we'll talk through odor control solutions, other pre-packaged and mobile systems for wastewater, and also there's an interesting solution for sludge dewatering. So as the saying goes, if you don't want to see it or smell it, just cover it up. Okay, that might not be what we teach our kids, but this practice works great for adults, especially the adults who work in the wastewater business, and especially if they're in your neighborhood. So whether the wastewater is municipal wastewater or food processing or some other processed wastewater, covers can be custom designed to fit tanks, basins, and lagoons of any size or shape. You kind of get the sense when you look at the image on the bottom right, that lagoon is absolutely huge, and the cover has been custom made to go over that. And aside from being a good neighbor and covering up a bad odor, covers make sense when you're collecting biogas for energy conversion and when you want to control temperature and algae growth, and plus they reduce contamination and disinfection byproducts. Now there's also a new system of structurally supported covers that perform the same functions we just mentioned, plus they're airtight and they allow off gas to be reliably captured, and the covers can be retracted to provide easy access for inspections and maintenance. And because they're structurally based, they're really strong. All the covers can be installed without disruption to plant operation, and they're designed for local code loads. Plus, they're UV protected, and they're resistant to the often corrosive wastewater environment. And these covers can also be used in potable water applications, reducing disinfection requirements, so they're not just for municipal wastewater. Now, odor control also has a wide range of chemical-based solutions too. The chemicals are typically held in a tank and they're inserted into the waste stream at pump stations along the pipeline. And this is illustrated above with the technician standing in front of the green tank. The chemicals you see listed on the side, along with others, they adjust the pH levels of the effluent, and they can mitigate the levels of hydrogen sulfide, or H2S, or as we kind of more think of it, the compound that puts the U in wastewater odor. But like everything else, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to odor controlling using chemicals. Each one of the chemicals is an answer to a question related to treatment goals, pH balance, flow rate, and other things. Specific treatments are really determined when you are discussing, your local situation with the solution expert. Now, some rural areas may have longer pipelines with fewer pump stations and a lower flow rate, and that combination might determine a very specific chemical response. There are also odor control chemicals that perform the dual function of controlling corrosion, and that can mitigate the destructive effects of hydrogen sulfide inside the wastewater pipes. And this treatment can extend the life of your infrastructure, and that's super important. That's in all caps. If you can, you can imagine that being all caps, this treatment can extend the life of your infrastructure. I've never really known that to be a bad idea. So that's important. Odor is also controlled by vapor and biofilter systems. Air is pushed up through a carbon bed and vented out a port like you can see in the top image. In a biofilter system, the air is vented upwards as well, but in that case, it rises through a bed of media and is irrigated with a nutrient spray before being vented through the top. And once again, your neighbors will thank you because those are often found in neighborhoods. Now, we previously talked about pre-packaged skid-mounted solutions for drinking water, but wastewater treatment solutions for municipal or industrial use, they have their own choices for modular packages. And also they can come with customized field-erected full-on treatment plants. The modular packages come in the form of skid-mounted membrane bioreactors, which can be programmed with user-friendly controls, and they can process from 5,000 to 200,000 gallons a day. The modular systems, they can process groundwater and surface water, and they're adept at advanced nitrogen and phosphorus removal. They can also serve as pre-treatment for reverse osmosis, or they can serve as an emergency response water treatment. You can put those in residential and commercial developments, and they create compliant water for discharge. The field-erected treatment plants, they are full wastewater treatment plants, but they're less capital intensive than the form-built concrete basin type. There's a shorter concept to completion, construction time, and capacities can range up to 5 million gallons a day. So many of you probably live in areas that are rapidly expanding in development, either from people moving away from urban areas with industries cropping up to follow the population, or maybe businesses are moving in to take advantage of tax incentives. But whatever the case is, this expansion event creates the perfect solution or situation for solutions like these to put into place. And they can be standalone, or they can be added on to existing facilities. Now, there's a new sludge dewatering solution that appears to be tailor-made for wastewater treatment for agricultural use or food processing and for low-flow municipal wastewater treatment plants. It's a rotary press that works on a continual basis. The sludge is piped in and the dried cake is dispensed through the chutes in front. And once it starts up, it just keeps going because there are so few moving parts, it's almost maintenance free. Now, we didn't want to do a specific kind of single product highlight here because after all, there are a lot of dewatering solutions out there, from filter presses and belt presses and screw presses. But for the sake of this discussion and for the use that we're highlighting here and for low flow applications, this really was the perfect fit. There are no cycle times to worry about, or I guess in essence, there's only one, on. When you start it up, it just keeps going without needing much, if any, attention. So there's no stopping to drop the cake, and there's no scraping plates or cleaning belts, and you don't have to worry about scheduling man hours. There's no like office hours for this, on time. When you start up the press, it can pretty much you can walk away, and it does its thing kind of 24/7. So best of all, it has a really small footprint and can be programmed and monitored remotely, like some of the other equipment that we talked about. So, John?
Thank you, Mike. Just waiting for the slide to catch up.
Yep. Eventually, we move away from the cows. There we go.
Exactly. So one of the things we want to just kind of reiterate is that every water is different. And we mean that from a community standpoint, that even if two communities are sharing water from the same aquifer, from the same surface source, whether it be the same river or the same lake, every community is different. Every water is different, right? The water itself may actually be different, which is not uncommon. Different concentrations because of different locations, where they are on the river, certain, I'll say geological effects as well in there, as well as maybe treatment goals, because every community has different populations and different needs. So once again, effective, what you're looking for when you're trying to pick a partner in this as a solutions provider, The most effective ones and the ones you're going to be happiest with are ones that will partner with you from the initial water through the testing and then until all your treatment goals are met and beyond. So they can provide kind of the full service stop, is that they can help you with initial water, they can provide you guidance, they can provide you testing, they can provide solutions for today as well as tomorrow, and they're vested in what you have in there as well. You know, they're good stewards of their community. They're good stewards of the environment. One of the other features is service solutions, because I know a lot of rural communities are pretty challenged with resources that, you know, they don't have large operating budgets and large labor pools to draw from. So one of the things your service solution or your equipment or your solution provider can help with is service. And that can be anything from simple change out and exchanges of media or other things to actual maintenance, as well as whether it be break fix maintenance or preventative maintenance scheduling. A lot of times these providers bring expertise. They should be bringing expertise because it's their equipment, their solutions, they're trained, they're certified, they're knowledgeable. One of the other things, you know, is making sure that they have a good safety record. You don't want someone coming onto your property that is going to get hurt or injured and you know, basically cause a liability for you. So one of the things you want to check is make sure they have a good safety record, as well as, you know, making sure that they have, you know, employees that undergo certain training, as well as, you know, safety training, as well as OSHA training. Maybe has, if it's a, you know, if it's something where they're going to be, I'll say, transporting hazardous material, they've got HAZWOPER training or hazmat training, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make sure that you've got a provider that can dovetail solutions in with the equipment as well as other pieces of it. Once again, the most effective solutions providers know the equipment and will come to you when needed. So they'll be available to support you when you need it, whether it be, as I said, break fix, or whether it be preventative maintenance. They can do all sorts of things because they have the resources and the assets, like the trucks, the cleaning and sanitizing equipment. They can degas tanks for you. They can degas pipelines for you. They can provide scheduled regular maintenance. And they have a whole range of employees with industry expertise and a broad portfolio of solutions, so that you're not, you know, kind of fitting a round peg into a square hole. You know, they've got one, you know, what's the old saying, when you hold a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you want to have someone that has a broad portfolio that can provide a diverse offering for you, that'll be more in line with what your actual treatment goals are. And one of the last things is the best solution providers are easy to do business with. You know, priorities are the community safety and the environment. They can mobilize things very quickly to ensure clean, safe water as well as air. You want to look for someone that has a reputable coverage that can go from rural to metropolitan areas, and you know, that they can support the communities. You know, kind of a little thing here. I mean, Evoqua is an international company, but we have employees all across the United States and rural as well as metropolitan areas, as an example. So one of the other things, when we have skin in the game, when we're talking to people in Texas, you know, or whatever state it may be, whether it be, you know, California, Texas, Arizona, where I am in Massachusetts, Michigan, where Mike is, we have skin in the game. We have employees in there that are actually, you know, out there doing the work, and they live and work in those communities. It's not someone who's getting parachuted in and then heading back out. And they, you know, you want to have someone with skin in the game. One of the last things is that they should be able to provide financing options to make safe and effective solutions approachable and affordable for all communities. Offerings such as maybe lease to own, just rental if it's just a temporary or permanent thing, as well as capital purchase, which means, you know, whether you bond it or bootstrap it and you pay for it all at once, or they can potentially offer you a build, own, operate, where they'll install a solution and then they'll maybe charge you, you know, a per gallon basis for doing it, and they'll staff it and operate it and make sure that everything maintains compliance. So just some of the things you want to look for in when you're kind of sourcing and vetting a supplier or a solution provider for your community. And like I said, this is just kind of another thing. This is just happens to be a map of our Evoqua footprint in the United States. These were some of our service offices. You can see there's some some gaps in there, but as far as like, you know, we're in all the major metropolitan areas, but we also can bring in resources locally as well. So like I said, you want to make sure that you have people that are there that have become a trusted partner for your team. Mike?
All right. Well, now we can answer some of your questions. We had a couple coming in previously, but you know, again, feel free to ask whatever questions you want to. And that map in the back that you just saw, we have those are some of our larger service centers, but we also have people working out of either of their homes, or we have other service centers that weren't shown there that are even more complete than that. So I think it's within what we'd say a 2 to 4 hour drive within like almost everywhere. So we can be mobile to wherever most people are, and that's always helpful. And one of the questions that came in was, what ancillary equipment is needed with the packaged plant, which I think it's referring to the wastewater membrane reactor system, and that in either plant, either the drinking water or the membrane, the wastewater treatment one, all you need is utilities. So either way, all you need is electricity and water, because they are pretty much plug and play. So you have the pipes, obviously, and then you just plug in the electricity, and then you know, it really is just plug and play. They include whatever is needed to go. So like pumps and blowers, you know, whatever the plant needs is already there, and all you need to do is plug it in and take it to your remote location or your development, whatever's happening, and just plug it in, and you know, it works. And you know, it's not like we drop it off, right? We're going to be there for you and help start it up, and we're going to talk to you about it first. So it's not going to be a big surprise. So we'll be there to work through the issues with you, and then you know, these will be either temporary or permanent based, whatever it is that you need, and we'll work through those issues with you. My community is complaining about the taste and odor in our drinking water. What will help with that? I think we covered that, a bit of that on one of the earlier slides, but I may have gone too fast. Surface water is typically the source of drinking water for a lot of communities, and it's a common source to be contaminated with nutrients, and they're often derived from animal waste or fertilizers. So these nutrients are fuel for algae growth, and that's what produces the taste and odor, causing the compounds that cause the taste and odor issues. And the compounds are resistant to oxidation by just chlorine. So the dead algae can actually make things worse when you add chlorine. So the chlorine will react with the organics, and that's what causes the THMs. So what you don't want are the THMs, and chlorine dioxide is the effective agent to get rid of the taste and odor compounds. So that's why we are kind of highlighting the chlorine dioxide there, to help get rid of the source of the algae and the compounds and the odor and the taste. Can the rotary press operate for long periods of time to minimize the size of the press? I think with that, I'll just say yes. I think the answer there, I think the question they're trying to ask there is, if my press is just operating continually, does that mean I can have a smaller footprint? And yes, you don't have to stop it, right? So it just keeps going. It's not like a filter press that has to stop and empty the cake. And you might be able to put in a large volume of sludge, but at some point you have to stop and you have to scrape the cake, clean it off, and then go back again. And sometimes the presses will stop when work stops. So when the guys go home. And in this case, you turn this on and it just keeps going. So the the rate of process is, ultimately much higher, and there's nothing to really stop or to clean. So if you want, you can actually automatically make this shut down and turn on a wash cycle if you want. And if there's an error with it, then it will actually send the alarm to your mobile device. So there is that remote sensoring, which is helpful. But in any case, that's why the footprint is so low, because it just keeps running continually. I work with equipment vendors and suppliers all the time. So what makes you different from the others? That's a good question, and I would imagine other people are on the call are the same. I don't imagine everyone on the call is a water purveyor or necessarily someone who works, in a plant. So what really sets us apart as a vendor is that we have over 100 years of experience, combined with all the different business units we have, and we connect with almost every application that treats water in whatever market it's in. And what that means is we don't just know about one piece of equipment or just one application. We design and we implement hundreds of solutions in almost any application you can think of as it relates to water treatment. So we mentioned very disparate things like oil and gas or construction, or we even have solutions for high tech. One thing there's no reason to go into it here, but as a source of interest, we also provide odor control for high-tech circuit washing for high-tech industry. And that's a 3-story odor control unit, which is interesting. But we are in like everywhere you can be when it relates to water treatment. We also collaborate internally. So for example, if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm going to reach for the phone and call John or someone else, and one of us will find the answer and get back to you. So we never leave a customer hanging. So when you get your water tested, and after we design a system for you, after we install it, we don't leave until we know your treatment goal is being met. And even after that, we check back with you to make sure the goal is still on target. And satisfied customers is how we get a lot of our testimonials and success stories, because we just don't leave until we know it works and it continues to work. So because we work with water, and it's it's a thing we all need, it's our passion, for what we do. This is our passion, and our industry expertise and our application knowledge is really what sets us apart. Plus, we're just super friendly, and we like to do this. So. Do you have any experience in treating landfill leachate with PFOS? Yes, we do. We have several installations of treating landfill leachate. We've run column testing on landfill leachate in Michigan, and Michigan has a lot of PFOS and PFAS contamination. Now we also have systems treating landfill with contaminants other than PFAS and PFOS installed at a lot of locations. As you can tell from this presentation and from just doing a quick Google search, PFAS is a huge issue, and they're finding it in landfills across the country. So this is an increasingly important issue, and we're in talks with municipal and other landfills throughout the country. And John, I don't know if you have any other experience or if you have anything to add to that, but we do have experience in that. So if that's something you need, feel free to give us a call.
Absolutely. Nope. You covered it, Mike. That's good. So I see just another, since you've been talking for a while, I'll give you a little bit of a break here. So I got a question. You mentioned the carbon and resin solutions can remove PFAS to non-detectable level. What are the analytical technologies online and in lab do you use or recommend for PFAS and other emerging contaminants? Good question. So usually, for those of you that maybe, I'll say on the business end of the drinking water, you may be familiar with what's called the UCMR, Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rules. The EPA sends out information on that and wants you to sample for certain things. PFAS in particular has made it on to the one of the latest UCMRs. It's been out there. In fact, I was on an unrelated topic, I was in Ohio on Tuesday at the EPA Office of Research and Development for the UCMR5 workshop to talk about what contaminants are going on the list, and a big review of it. But one of the things on that is you want to make sure that you have a certified lab. Right now for PFAS and maybe some of the other ones, there's really no online instrument that can be used. So it's all grab sampling, unless you, of course, you use a composite sampler. But it's all basically gather the sample and then send it out for testing. If you want to find a lab that's, I recommend you find a lab that's been certified by EPA. You can go to the EPA website and they will have a listing of labs that are approved for whatever contaminant or group of contaminants you're looking for. For PFAS, right now, the latest method is EPA method 537.1. One of the things they were talking about is that coming this fall, there's going to be a revision. It's going to be EPA method 533, which will include more PFAS components as well as other detection limits and other things in there. So you want to make sure that any of the labs you pick are in compliance with the EPA test methods and that they have also some experience on that as well. I don't know if there's any other questions. I think that's all that I saw online, Mike. I don't know if you got any other questions, or Carol, if there's anything we missed.
No, I think you guys touched on everything. I think it was a really good webinar. We've got 5 minutes. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a reminder, if you have questions, please type it into the chat. Oh, well, I just saw one from on the Q&A. What is your service capabilities, availability to Hawaii? We actually have installations over in Hawaii. We actually have a third-party service provider that we do over there. We don't actually have an Evoqua office over there, but we have a relationship with a service provider over there that does service and provides products on our behalf. If you have any interest in that, just let us know. We actually kind of cover, from a sales perspective, we cover it from the States, but we have a local provider that's kind of our service and provider arm over in Hawaii that we can get you hooked up with.
So we just had a question about presentation provided by email. We place this presentation on our Water University. If you would like it by email, please send an email to me. It's carol@nrwa.org, and I'd be more than happy to send it to you. I just got to make sure that you have a big enough inbox to be able to handle a presentation, which I don't remember how big this one is, but it's usually, to be safe, around 5 megabytes.
Yeah, this was actually about 50 with the images,
Oh,
but I
is
mean, as a PDF,
well.
I think it'll be really small as
Yeah.
a PDF. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
And also, if anyone we have a couple minutes, but if anyone has any questions, you can always call that number, or email that, and actually those go directly to John. You're welcome. I set those up. Yeah. So
and we have a couple.
We did get a couple more questions.
Yep.
Yeah, just coming in. One, do you provide AOP technologies on contaminants? Yes, Evoqua does have AOP technology for remediation. We also have AOP technology that we use for taste and odor on drinking water, on municipal. We have a chemical-free AOP technology that we use that generates its own oxidant, so you don't have to worry about storing chemicals. It's done via electrode. We do that for taste and odor, and we also have a remediation technology for AOP for removing hard to oxidize or hard to remove organics. What type of solutions do you provide for selenium removal? It's a good question. Not that they're all not good questions, but selenium's a pretty tricky one. We do have a combination of media as well as a conventional, a conventional system called Pyronox that they use for selenium. Depending upon the flow rate and the concentration, we could use either one of those two solutions for selenium removal, and they're both very effective. Sometimes we use our Pyronox with a polishing selenium removal resin That's something if it's more industrial in that application, which tends to have higher concentrations. If it's something that's in, you're trying to remove selenium from groundwater, then maybe just a straight resin solution, depending upon the flow, maybe your better option. Once again, if you do have specific applications you want to talk about, you can email the address there on your screen, environmentalsolutions@evoqua.com, or you can visit us at evoqua.com and submit a question or an inquiry through Contact Us, whatever is easier for you.
Yep, and just so you know, when we send this out, there is an appendix at the back with links to case studies and stuff. We didn't want to like be all salesy on this, but when you get the deck, then you can click on those and get some more more in-depth information.
Yeah, and there's a number there as well. The question box was over. I missed that. So you can call the number on the screen, the 866, which comes to me. And if I'm available, if I'm not on the phone or on the road, if you are, just leave a message and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, look forward to talking to you.